We're diving deep today into DMX's debut album. You know the one, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. This record dropped way back in '98, and people still feel it just as strongly today. Why is that?
Yeah, it really bucked the trend back then. You had the whole bad boy record sound taking over.
Right, Puff
Yeah.
Daddy, shiny suits, champagne.
Exactly. And here comes DMX. Totally different.
Like a punch in the face to the whole music industry. We were just talking about the bad boy era, all about success and excess.
And then DMX comes out swinging with the album title, It's Dark and Hell is Hot. I mean, talk about a statement.
No kidding. But you know what? That rawness, that blunt honesty, that's what hit people so hard, especially coming after we lost Tupac and Biggie. There was this hole in hip hop.
Absolutely. And DMX just stepped right into that
Yeah.
space, offering something real, raw.
And the title itself, It's Dark and Hell is Hot, it works on a bunch of levels, doesn't it?
It does. You've got DMX's own struggles, the darkness he'd lived through. But it also spoke to something bigger, like a whole generation dealing with hopelessness, poverty, violence, the whole system working against them.
Man, and then that first track, intro. You hear that gravelly voice, that intensity.
That's DMX letting you know exactly who he is. No games.
No pretense.
Straight up, like a boxer entering the ring, ready to fight.
And speaking of fighting, didn't DMX come up through the battle rap scene?
He did. And you can hear that in tracks like X is Coming, Get At Me Dog.
Yeah.
That aggressive style, those dark images he uses.
Yeah.
It all goes back to those battle rap roots.
Okay, and since we're talking about dark imagery, we have to talk about horrorcore. For anyone listening who might not know, we're talking about this subgenre of hip-hop. Uses horror movie themes, really graphic lyrics sometimes.
It's all about exploring that darker side of the human experience, going deep into the psychology of it all. And DMX really went there.
Do you mean X is Coming? It's intense stuff.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting is how DMX doesn't just use horrorcore for shock value. He weaves it into these deeply personal stories. Like in Damien, it's not just some generic demon, right? It's like he's wrestling with his own inner demons, his own temptations.
The consequences of his choices, too. It adds this whole other layer of meaning. And it's not just darkness and aggression either. You hear this incredible vulnerability come through.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in How's It Going Down, it's a totally different feel.
How's It Going Down is so key to the album. You've got DMX dealing with love, with betrayal, with heartbreak.
And you can hear it in his voice too, right?
Yeah.
There's this raw honesty there. You don't get that on every track. He's really laying himself bare in that one.
Totally agree. He's peeling back those layers.
Yeah.
There's a fragility there that hits you.
There's one line from that song that always gets to me. I knew right then and there my heart was in danger because she was knocking something I've been trying to keep a stranger. Just raw, real.
And relatable, right? I
Yeah.
mean, who hasn't felt that way?
Exactly. And that vulnerability, that willingness to explore all those different emotions, that's a big part of what makes this album so powerful.
For sure. It's not just about being tough or putting on a front. It's about being human,
Yeah.
being real.
And the production on this album really lets those lyrics shine through. It's so stark, minimalist.
Dame Grease and Swizz Beatz,
Mhm.
the producers on this one really knew what they were doing. They created a soundscape that lets DMX's voice just take center stage.
Like Rough Riders anthem, right? That beat's so simple, but man, it hits hard. Those driving drums.
And that sparse melody. You can feel the urgency in it, that sense of camaraderie, almost like a rallying cry.
Oh, yeah. You feel the energy. It's not just for the Rough Riders crew, It's like he's speaking to anyone who's ever felt like they were on the outside looking in, overlooked, underestimated. Speaking of the Rough Riders, though, we have to talk about community. How important that was to DMX.
Absolutely. You hear that sense of belonging throughout the whole album.
That brotherhood, that
Yeah.
loyalty.
DMX was fiercely loyal to his crew. And that comes through in the music. It's not just about individual struggle. It's about finding strength together, supporting each other.
Like he's saying, look, we're all in this together. We're going to fight our way out.
Right. And that message of resilience, that you can find hope even in the darkest times. I think that's what resonated with so many people. And it's still as relevant today as it was back then.
No doubt. So we've got this raw honesty, this exploration of dark themes, this vulnerability, the community. How does it all fit together, though? What makes It's Dark and Hell is Hot work so well as a whole?
It's the sequencing, man. This album, it's not just a collection of songs. It's a journey. It takes you through all these different emotions. You go from the aggression of a track like Get At Me Dog to the introspection of Look Through My Eyes. And it's all very deliberate.
That's a good point. It's like each track builds on the one before it. It pulls you in. Like that transition you just mentioned from Get At Me Dog to Look Through My Eyes. You go from this explosion of energy to this sudden quiet.
It's jarring, but it totally works.
Yeah.
That's how DMX uses contrast. He highlights different sides of what it means to be human. He's not afraid to show you the good and the bad, the light and the shadow.
And that's what makes it so compelling. You know what else sets him apart, though? I think it's that willingness to be so authentic, to let himself be vulnerable. A lot of artists back then, they weren't doing that.
He wasn't afraid to show his scars. And by doing that, he gave other people permission to do the same.
Exactly.
And that's the real power here. It goes beyond just the music. It's about the message. It's about looking that darkness straight in the eye and finding the strength to overcome it.
And you know what? We're going to dig into that even more in the next part of our deep dive.
We're going to be looking at how DMX's music went beyond the personal and tackled those big systemic issues that contribute to all that darkness.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more on It's Dark and Hell is Hot.
We were talking about DMX's honesty before the break, how real he kept it. And it wasn't just about his own problems.
Yeah, he went way deeper. He talked about the whole system, how messed up it was.
Exactly. Think about what was going on back then, late 90s. You had the war on drugs. Mass incarceration was exploding. So many communities were just devastated. Poverty, neglect.
And DMX was speaking for them, the people who felt invisible, like they didn't have a voice.
And he did it in a way that got your attention.
Like that line in Stop Being Greedy, the only way to survive is to be unethical. Damn.
He wasn't pulling any punches. He wasn't trying to make things sound better than they were. He put those problems right in your face, made you deal with them.
Yeah, it's like he's holding up this mirror to society saying, look, this is what's happening. We got to do something about it.
And the thing is, it wasn't just anger. There's real empathy in his music, too. He wasn't just criticizing. He was connecting with the people who were hurting, the people who were trapped in that system.
Like in Look Through My Eyes, right?
Exactly. I'm living proof that there's a better way, but they don't want to see it. They'd rather me stay this way. That line.
He was speaking for a whole generation. And it's crazy how many people connected with that. It wasn't just one group, It went beyond race, beyond social
It was
class.
universal. The struggle to survive, the desire for justice, that wanting something better for yourself. Everyone understands that.
And you can see how much he inspired other artists, too. Not just Kendrick, like we mentioned earlier. People like J. Cole, that whole socially conscious thing he's known for.
DMX paved the way. It's not just a musical style, it's about using your voice, speaking out against injustice, challenging the way things are.
And it wasn't just about complaining either. He talked about solutions, too. Like, remember how important community was to him, that whole brotherhood thing? That was a form of resistance.
Absolutely. It's about creating your own support systems, having each other's backs, finding strength in numbers. That's huge, especially in a world that can feel so isolating, so divided.
It's like he was saying, yeah, things are tough, but we're in this together. We're going to get through it.
And that idea of community, it went beyond the Rough Riders, too. Think about all the artists he worked with. Eve, Nas, Jay-Z. It was about bringing people together, building something bigger than yourself.
And he was always giving back, too. Mentoring younger rappers, supporting his community. It wasn't just about making it for himself.
He understood that real change doesn't happen alone. It happens when we work together, when we lift each other up.
And that message is still so relevant today. All the problems DMX was talking about, they're still here. Poverty, inequality, racism.
We have to keep fighting for justice, keep pushing for a better world.
And it's not just about big political movements either. It's about how we treat each other every single day.
About recognizing that we're all connected, that we're all in this together.
So how do we take that message, that energy, and apply it to our own lives? How do we keep that fire burning?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's something we're going to talk about in the last part of our deep dive. We're going to be looking at DMX's legacy, how his music continues to inspire people, how it pushes us to be more authentic, more vulnerable, more willing to fight for what we believe in.
Man, we've talked about a lot with this album. I mean, DMX just put it all out there, didn't he? Raw emotion, social commentary, and then that whole focus on community.
It really is so much more than just an album, though, isn't it? It's dark and hell is hot. It's like this cultural touchstone. It captures a specific moment in time, but those themes, that struggle, that resilience, that search for redemption, it's all timeless.
It's universal. And to think about how much he still influences music today.
You hear it everywhere. Kendrick, J. Cole, Denzel Curry, that raw energy he brings.
They all owe something to DMX. It's not just about copying his style, though. It's deeper than that.
It's about keeping it real, speaking truth to power, even when it's hard, not being afraid of the darkness.
DMX showed everyone it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show those scars, to talk about the pain.
And you know what? It's often in those moments when we let our guard down, that's when we find our real strength.
It's like he was saying, look, I'm not perfect and you don't have to be either. We're all in this together. That message of unity is so important these days.
We're so divided now, it's easy to focus on what separates us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But DMX, his music, it reminds us that we all want the same things deep down.
Connection, a sense of belonging, purpose. We all have that capacity for darkness and light.
We got to brace both sides. Those struggles, they're part of what makes us human. And we can use those experiences to grow, to change, to become better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into It's Dark and Hell is Hot, what do you want our listeners to walk away with? What's the heart of DMX's legacy?
For me, it's that authenticity, that vulnerability. He showed us it's okay to be ourselves, even the messy parts.
It's okay to feel those emotions, talk about those struggles, find those people who get it, you know?
There's power in that. And those scars we carry, they're proof that we're survivors. We're stronger than we think.
We can face that darkness and come out on the other side.
And one last thing. This was just one perspective. There's so much more to DMX, to his music, to the way he changed things.
So keep listening, keep asking those questions, keep talking about it. His legacy, man, it's in the music, it's in the culture, it's in the hearts of everyone who felt that connection.